In the hushed sanctum of the courtroom, the air vibrated with the sotto voce of legal ritual, paper rustled like secrets and low voices blended into an ambient chorus, until a gavel's resounding strike shattered the murmur like a final heartbeat. Judge Danielle Carter, cloaked in the gravity of her robe, leaned forward on a bench as dark and polished as aged mahogany. It was meant to be a routine day in Atlanta, Georgia, a standard contest between the state and Michael Reeves, but destiny had already begun to rewrite the story. Her eyes skimmed the file before her, a dossier of brutal misdeeds, assault, armed robbery, resisting arrest, each charge a weighty reminder of lives ensnared in a fractured system. Then, the clinking of shackles announced the defendant's arrival, and in that moment, time splintered. Michael Reeves stepped forward, every metallic chime echoing memories of sunlit afternoons beneath towering oaks in their South Atlanta neighborhood, where bicycles skidded on gravel and laughter danced on the breeze. Once, he had been her dearest confidant, a beacon of youthful dreams and whispered conspiracies, now transformed into a man marked by a world of hardship. Her voice, trembling with a cocktail of duty and disbelief, broke the heavy silence. "Mr. Reeves, you face charges of assault and armed robbery. How do you plead?" In a voice roughened by untold struggles yet resolute in its steadiness, Michael replied, "Not guilty, Your Honor." In that charged moment, the courtroom became a battleground between the ghosts of their shared past and the unforgiving demands of the present. As the proceedings unfurled, the district attorney, a silver-tongued raconteur of legal fate, stepped forward to weave a tapestry of menace and misfortune. He depicted Michael as a dangerous soul who had brutally attacked a clerk and absconded with a meager collection of crumpled bills and loose change. While he spoke, Michael's eyes remained shrouded in a veiled intensity, a glimmer of fear, or perhaps a spark of defiant hope, that belied the persona of the lost boy she once knew. In a ripple of recollection, Danielle's mind wandered back to a time when innocence reigned. Memories of lazy summer afternoons surfaced, her modest brick house on Maplewood Drive, Michael's weathered duplex a few blocks away, and the genesis of their bond at a sunlit community center. She recalled clutching a library book on a warm pavement while Michael ambled over with a battered basketball and a crooked smile, teasing, "You're always buried in your books, while I'm chasing a dream." From that day onward, they had traded secrets beneath the shadow of an ancient water tower and swapped half-eaten sandwiches, their dreams soaring high above the confines of their neighborhood. Yet, as unspoken rules and stern warnings from her pragmatic father crept into their lives, that once unbreakable friendship began to splinter beneath the weight of expectation. The prosecutor's narrative was interrupted by the grainy evidence, a black and white surveillance clip of a figure in a red hoodie storming a corner store, locked in a fierce exchange with a clerk, and then vanishing into darkness as the cash register lay abandoned. The image, as fragmented as a half-remembered dream, left Danielle questioning, was this enough to condemn the man she once cherished, or merely a distorted echo of a larger injustice? Rising with a cool determination, the defense attorney Elena Brooks took command of the narrative. Addressing the witness, a hesitant store clerk, Elena pressed, "You mentioned a red hoodie. Was the face of the man clear?" The clerk's voice wavered in the dim light, confessing that the hood obscured his view, leaving only vague impressions. In that pause, the courtroom held its breath. The ambiguous testimony resonated like an unfinished note, challenging the certainty of the case and setting doubt adrift in every ear. During a brief recess, the weight of the trial drove Danielle into the solitude of her chambers. Her assistant, Grace Taylor, with quiet concern, inquired, "Judge Carter, you seem distracted, are you all right?" With a strained smile that barely concealed the tempest inside, Danielle murmured, "I'm just weary." Yet, behind the closed door, memories surged, a cascade of long-forgotten laughter and shared secrets, and she wondered if the man before her was more than the sum of his alleged crimes. When the trial resumed, Officer Brandon Pierce was called to testify. His measured tone faltered as he recounted how Michael had been apprehended solely on a vague description, no red hoodie found, no physical proof linking him to the scene. Elena's incisive questioning pried at every uncertainty, and Pierce's reluctant admissions painted a picture of a system driven by protocol rather than hard evidence. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence, the weight of assumption pressing down like an unseen force. As the day advanced, the interplay of evidence and memory unsettled the gathered jurors. Danielle's mind churned with reflections of long ago summer afternoons, when the world was a canvas of limitless hope, unblemished by the harsh delineations of duty. Her father's stern admonitions about associating with Michael, a boy deemed unsuitable by societal decree, echoed in her ears, adding a bitter tinge to the unfolding drama. Then came the forensic testimony. Dr. Marcus Levine, an unassuming analyst with spectacles perched precariously on his nose, stepped forward. His measured voice revealed that the surveillance footage was marred by irregular frame rates, missing seconds, and timestamps that hinted at deliberate tampering. The video, he explained with quiet authority, cannot reliably identify a suspect. His words, laced with technical precision and underlying unease, reverberated through the courtroom, casting a long shadow over the prosecution's case. The final day dawned with an oppressive tension. Judge Carter returned to her bench, her calm exterior betraying a storm of inner conflict. Michael sat at the defense table, shoulders slumped in quiet resignation, while Elena Brooks exuded a determined poise as she methodically deconstructed the prosecution's narrative. The prosecutor, his eyes sharp and unyielding, recited the case as if it were an inexorable decree of fate, an innocent life ensnared by circumstances and chance. In a rare, hushed moment away from the formalities of the trial, Elena leaned close to Michael. "You've been so silent, do you believe they can truly see the real you?" he asked in a whisper heavy with both hope and despair. Michael's gaze, laden with the weariness of a life spent in the shadows, met hers. "I wonder if anyone ever will," he confessed, his voice a brittle mix of resignation and yearning. In that fleeting exchange, a silent gratitude emerged, as if Michael were saying, "Thank you for fighting for me," even though the judge, bound by duty, could offer only a tearful, wordless nod. At last, the jury returned. A woman with silver-threaded hair and a quavering voice read the verdict. "In the case of the state versus Michael Reeves, we find the defendant not guilty." For an agonizing heartbeat, time seemed to suspend, then, gasps, soft sobs, and murmurs swept through the room. Michael's shoulders slumped further, as if releasing a breath held for an eternity, while the prosecutor's jaw tightened in a silent display of disillusionment. Judge Carter's gavel then fell like a judge's final decree, its reverberation sealing the moment as the courtroom emptied into a heavy, uncertain quiet. After the verdict, Michael lingered, his hands trembling as he slowly rose and turned toward the bench. In a voice barely above a whisper, he asked, "You remembered me, didn't you?" The question hung in the air, fragile yet piercing. With a throat tight with regret, Danielle managed, "Yes, Michael, I remember every moment." His eyes, heavy with sorrow and unspoken questions, searched hers. "Then why did you never say anything?" he pressed, his tone mingling hurt with disbelief. Her confession was a fragile whisper. "If I spoke, it would have compromised your right to a fair trial." The silence between them spoke volumes, an acknowledgement of a past where they were simply children, bound by dreams, now torn apart by a relentless system. In that shared glance, the silent gratitude and the unuttered "thank you for fighting for me" resonated, echoing like a mournful lullaby in the stillness of the aftermath. Later that night, beneath an Atlanta skyline shrouded in fog and the distant promise of rain, Judge Carter stood alone. The cool air carried the scent of renewal and regret as she gazed out at a city whose lights twinkled like distant memories. A text message from her father, "Proud of you, Danny. Keep upholding the law," buzzed quietly, yet its warmth did little to soothe the ache within her. In that moment, she vowed to seek a justice that transcended mere procedure, a justice that honored every human story entangled in the web of fate. With the soft murmur of the night as her witness, she breathed, "I will do better, Michael, I promise," her words dissolving into the wind, a pledge to heal the fractures of a system too long marred by indifference. And as the courthouse doors closed behind the departing crowd, the fragile hope of redemption mingled with the night's cool breath, a promise that tomorrow might finally tilt the scales toward what was right, not merely what was expected.